My name is Missy McNeil. I am a professor of medicine here at the Warren Alpert Medical School, and I am currently working as an academic hospitalist and am the director of faculty development for the Division of General Internal Medicine here at Brown. I have a long-standing history and tradition of mentoring, and I'm happy to be here today to talk about one of my most favorite subjects.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Toll. I use she, her pronouns, and also my nickname Betsy. I'm professor of pediatrics and medicine at the Warren Alpert Medical School. I trained in combined internal medicine and pediatrics and spent most of my career at the MedPeds Residency Training Clinic, where I had my own primary care practice of multiple generations and also taught residents and medical students. I was a longtime member of the Doctoring 1 faculty at the medical school. And I stopped seeing patients in 2021, and since then have been working part-time with the Department of Medicine and Brown Med as a physician coach, meeting with faculty and fellows and residents to discuss any and all professional interests and concerns. And I'm delighted to be here to talk about mentoring. I've been involved with formal and informal mentoring programs all the way across my career.
The benefits of mentoring are huge. This is an opportunity for you to share your skills. This is an opportunity to make a difference in the next generation. For me, it keeps me young and fresh because I'm working with new physicians who are eager and interested and have new skills. And so it's just a fabulous way to extend yourself and to help the next generation along. It also actually helps you in terms of your own faculty promotion. When you go up for faculty promotion, there is a spot on your CV that says mentoring. And to be able to list and identify those individuals that you've mentored, that you've made a difference for, is a more sort of transactional, if you will, benefit to mentoring.
A mentorship is considered to be a formal leadership educational role. And so when you go up for your own promotion, those people that you've had a formal mentoring relationship are considered to be part of your academic activities. It can also lead to publications and presentations and network and new connections. So many people find that they actually gain professional experiences and credentials based on the work of their mentees. But Missy, we can't forget to say that the most important reason to mentor is because it's fun.
So the duration of the mentoring relationship can be variable. At a minimum, twice a year until the goal of the mentoring relationship is established. I think this is envisioned to help new faculty move to the next level. So a faculty member, for example, coming in at the assistant professor level, the thought, hope, expectation would be that this relationship would continue until that next academic hurdle, which would be the associate professor role.
But also, mentoring relationships can last the duration of the need. So for example, if somebody has never written a grant, they may find someone to mentor them through the process of writing a grant. Or if they find themselves moving from the fellowship role to the assistant professor role and feel like they need some help thinking about job description and teaching responsibilities and clinical responsibilities and political issues, they may just want some help moving over that hurdle. So it depends on the goals and the structure and the stage of life or the project they're working on.
And just to add a little bit more to that, what I find is that with the folks that I've mentored, the actual, as you said, I get a check-in. You know, that we're not really mentoring, they've moved to a different institution, they're at a different level, they're autonomous, but something comes up. And so one of the benefits of establishing that mentoring relationship for the mentee is it can be a lifelong person to just do that check-in and to help you with the next hurdle.
Or to help you get in touch with somebody who may be able to help you.
Exactly. So exactly.
Well, obviously, it's a time commitment, and most of us are really busy. It's chemistry also. There are some mentee-mentor relationships that feel more comfortable than others. A lot of it is dependent on the level of motivation of the mentee. And while we don't expect mentees to be independent professionally, we also hope they won't develop an unhealthy dependency on us.
And I think just to add to that a little bit, the downside beyond the time, the rewards actually, I think, make up for the time. But not all mentor-mentee relationships click or gel. And so figuring out your role, figuring out what's working, sometimes, like any relationship, it can be a difficult relationship, and that's a downside. But those are things that can be worked through. You know, Betsy, you and I spent a lot of time talking about this, and there are things that I think are really important. I think the first is to be available for your mentee. I think the second would be to have a clear understanding of what the mentee's goals are. We see a lot of mentors who want to make mini-me's, and that's not a good mentor. A mentor should meet the mentee where they are and help them develop the skills and attributes that they need to be successful in the path that they're choosing. So that gets back to, it has to be a good fit between the mentor and the mentee. It also gets to the place of thinking about this from the perspective that part of the mentor's role, as you talked about earlier, is to maybe find people who can help them. It's not necessarily a one-stop shopping model.
I think also mentors have knowledge and wisdom and experience, but the relationship needs to be about the mentee. So it's important that the mentor is more interested in listening and encouraging and imagining the reality and goals of the mentee than speaking endlessly about their own experience. And they also need to be the kind of person who can put another person at comfort and encourage them. I think sometimes an intimidating mentor gets in the way of the ability of the mentee to be really honest and to speak about the things they really need.
And I love the way you reflected a little bit about sort of the power dynamic, because I do think one of the other really important things about a mentor is to be able to give hard feedback.
Yes.
That, you know, we've been talking a lot about trying to sort out what the mentee's goals and expectations are. And sometimes where the mentee wants to get doesn't match what they want to do. And so part of it is a reality check of, if you want to get to be a division chief or a department chair somewhere, this is what you have to do to get it. The same way you have to be able to give feedback about things that can be difficult. You didn't handle yourself well in that meeting. You missed that deadline. You know, I asked you to call somebody and you didn't follow through. So knowing where the mentee is, making sure that goals and expectations are based in reality, and being able to give both support and constructive and sometimes difficult feedback is probably what I would say the most important thing.
Yeah, and obviously we would expect people to arrive with more clear picture of their professional goals later in career. So initially, for example, a resident may not know if they want to go into research or teaching or community work or fellowship. But farther along, people should have more of a sense, yes, I do want to be doing research. I hope it'll represent this amount of my work. And so I think that feedback can also be, we would expect more specific goals as somebody gets farther along in their career.
And our job is to help people put their goals where they can realistically hope to get there.
Yes. I think a mentor should also be able to help create a structure for the relationship. What are our goals here? How often will we meet? How will we communicate with each other? Will it be email? Will it be texting? And how and where will we meet? Maybe twice a year face-to-face, twice a year on Zoom. So I think all of these things, it's important that this relationship is defined, the boundaries of this relationship are defined, and the goals of this relationship are defined.
Totally agree. And what I would say is the role of the mentor is to tell the mentee what they expect. For example, I expect the mentee to own this relationship. You know, we need to set up regular meetings. They can be quarterly, monthly, twice a year, whatever we negotiate. But once we set that expectation, I look at it as the mentee's job. It is the mentee's job to tell me what they need from me. Now, I will feel free to tell them other things that I think are important for them to know. But I expect the mentee to own the relationship. That's the structure. Things like, how do you set up a meeting with me? Do I have an administrator that you call? Do you email me? Do you text me? How do I like meetings to take place? Do I want an agenda before? It's my job to set that expectation of what I'm going to need, and then it is the mentee's job to put that structure in place.
Yeah.
And I think periodic check-ins about how the relationship is going am I meeting your expectations? Are you meeting my expectations? And also to acknowledge this is constructive, or I feel like this is not moving in the direction we want, and I think maybe, do you think it makes sense to dismantle the mentorship relationship and perhaps find another setting?
And both ways.
Both directions.
And I am or am not getting from you what I need, but also, are you getting from me what you need?
Exactly.
And that's hard sometimes to get a more junior person to share that, but it's really important to do that bi-directional check-in.
Yes.
Ideally, the old model of a mentor is almost the apprentice. One person gives you everything you need. And increasingly these days, we don't see that. You are mentoring somebody. In my case, it would be a clinician educator because I'm an educator. So I would be mentoring somebody on the scholarship they would have to do, their teaching skills, how they would develop. But perhaps they want to do a project that requires qualitative methods. They want to interview a bunch of learners about how a curriculum went or something like that. I don't have that skill set. So I would pull to the table what we would call a methods mentor. So I could do content, but somebody else would have to do methods. I think there are also other things that are really important. We talk about the importance of bringing your whole self to work. It's very challenging to think about how you build your career without thinking about how your life goals also fit in. Do you have a family? Do you not have a family? Do you have older parents who need your time? Is it really important to you to run a marathon, right? All of these things are really important. And it may be that, for example, if I don't have children, I need to refer you to somebody else who can talk a little bit about life balance. It can be group mentoring, as I talked about. I'll do content, somebody else can do methods on a scholarly. You can have sort of someone who will help you navigate the politics, which may or may not be a mentor. Oftentimes I serve as a mentor to people actually from different departments because I'm not in the middle of the politics. And that has some help or not help. I also want to highlight peer and near-peer mentoring. I think there is a huge amount to be said for talking to somebody at your level about, hey, how did you make it work? Did you ask for a raise? How do you negotiate your time? Some of those kind of things are very specific questions that folks who are closer to you can answer. Whereas when we think a little bit of mentoring, we think about a senior-junior dyad, but there are other models as well.
Yeah, and peer mentoring can also be very helpful in terms of people holding each other accountable, for example, on writing projects or seeking grants or studying for boards, things like that. Sometimes experience and age don't match up. It's possible to have somebody who has more experience who's younger, and so there can be that difference. And once in a while, we seek mentorship from people who are younger and experiencing something. For example, we were teaching a course on marijuana use in the high school, and so we brought in some high school students to give us a reality check on what was happening there. So younger people were actually mentoring older people.
So I think from the thinking about this, since we're supposed to be talking about mentors, one of the things that as a mentor is incumbent upon us to do is to figure out where the gaps are in our mentoring.
Yes.
And to give suggestions, make connections to somebody who can fill in those gaps. part of how you figure out the gaps is figuring out what's working, what's not working in your mentoring relationship.
And one more thought about group mentoring. You had mentioned group mentoring as being a number of mentors around one mentee, but oftentimes people who have a common need can be group mentored by a single senior person. And so by sharing their mutual experiences, it's a good use of the senior time, and it also helps people realize they're not alone and that they have a team of people to help them move ahead.
If you can be thoughtful about it, I just took 2 junior faculty to lunch last week. They're starting on the wards, and we talked about their goals being a teacher, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how we can operationalize it. So we had lunch, we had fun, right? We had fun, we had lunch, we had fun. It was a beautiful day. We sat outside, but I was able to do it, share my thoughts as a group, which then leveraged my time.
And you simultaneously set up a peer mentorship relationship with these two people who can now commiserate with each other or give each other ideas.
Or complain about me, right? Many things can happen.
For both the mentor and the mentee, the ability to be available and to follow through are really important qualities. When you set these goals and have a nice meeting with your mentor or mentee, there's all this energy, but then it's the follow-up, it's the making sure that you do schedule that appointment, that you do contact that network person, that you do write that paper. And so I think following through is a really important part of both mentor and mentee.
Agreed.
While it's a specific relationship of passing on knowledge and wisdom to a less experienced person, there are aspects of advising as well in terms of giving advice, but you are not an advisor. You're not the person who meets with somebody twice a year to go over their grades and their reviews and so forth and so on. That may come into it. Nor are you a coach. A coach sits with somebody and is kind of like a personal trainer, sets up your specific goals and how you're going to get there and asks you the deep questions, assuming that you have the skills. So while there is encouraging and coaching in mentoring, the assumption is that you don't have these skills, that you need an older or more experienced person to help you gain those skills. And finally, this isn't a psychotherapist. While obviously people go through difficult moments in career, political accidents, patients who didn't do well, you are not there to repair an injured person. Psychotherapy presumes there's some kind of psychological or emotional injury that needs healing. And while everything we do in teaching and doctoring and mentoring is about healing, we're not really healing an illness or a wound. And so sometimes that's a more appropriate place for that.
As a mentor, my job is to elicit your goals. And so when someone comes to me and says, will you be my mentor? The question is, what does that mean to you? Where are you trying to get? What do you want to do? Where do you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And lots of junior people can answer that question. So we work out the goals. Do you want to be a clinician educator? Do you want to be a clinician investigator? Do you want to be primarily a clinician? Do you want to work with medical students? Do you want to work with residents? How can we make those happen? How can I help you make good choices that will get to your goals? But you, again, as a mentee, have to have some thought about your goals. And so and those goals may change. We see that all the time, which is fine. But you can't work toward a goal if you don't have a goal. And the goal has to be mentee driven. And so the job of the mentor is to help the mentee elucidate their goals.
Yes.
The one last thing that I do want us to cover, I guess sort of the last wisdom I have to share, and then I'll turn it back to you, Betsy, for last words, is that you need to think a little bit about sort of the natural evolution of the mentoring relationship. Early on, you tend to be very hands-on. You're helping formulate goals. You're helping set agendas. You're setting timelines. As the relationship matures and your mentee hopefully is becoming more independent, you move a little bit more from the mentor to the advisor role. You're available, you help. And actually the other role that I want to highlight here is the importance of sponsorship.
What is sponsorship?
Sponsorship is when I put you forward for opportunities. I introduce you. I can be at a national meeting and I know you're interested, let's say, in diversity education. I know somebody who does it, I'm going to make sure that I introduce you. If I'm asked to review a journal article and I don't have time, I'm going to kick it to you. And that introduction support is a critical part of allowing people to, one, move in a different level, and two, develop their own independent relationships with people who can help them, both locally and across the country.
But I also think that's an important point of a mentor as well. If a mentor realizes that your interests are different from theirs and the mentor can't function as a sponsor, it's helping connect you to somebody who can do that sponsorship.
Absolutely.
And can get you to the committee or the publication or the speaking opportunity that you're looking.
And I would just conclude for me that one of the most, aside from it being fun, my mentoring relationships have been some of the most rewarding relationships that I've had and have morphed into friendships and collaborative relationships. So going back to where we started the conversation about what's in it for the mentor, fabulous relationships, opportunities to collaborate, and just sort of the pride in what you've helped create.
I totally agree with all of that. And I also think, to your earlier point, you have mentored somebody well when their professional and life goals diverge from your own and you see them realize what they really love. And there is no greater feeling for a mentor or a teacher than to see your own student or mentee exceed something that you did and become your mentor. And some of these relationships that I've had with my own mentor lasted almost 40 years before he died.
Decades.
Yeah. And my students now going on 25 years. So it's just really fun. And sometimes you mentor somebody for a stretch, they disappear, and then they return with a different need. And they also become a group of people to whom you can turn when you need mentoring and help on something. So
we think mentoring is great,
and
we
above all,
encourage you.
It's
fun.
and rewarding beyond the describing of it.